Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and we are delighted to have back with us today John Guandolo. He is the counter-terrorist expert, and he's authored another book. The first one pretty much put us on tilt, and understanding also heads up the founder of the understandingthethreat.com. By the way, jot that website down, understandingthethreat.com, and co-authored the book Sharia, the Threat to America. And today, his new book is Raising a Jihadi Generation. And I think you're going to find our time together with John to be pretty interesting. So stick around for the entire interview and share it with your friends. Hi, John. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to see you back. Wow. All right. First of all, how'd you come up with this title?
Oh, that's interesting. It's actually a piece of a quote from the leader of the International Muslim Brotherhood about raising a jihadi generation, but it also fits because that's exactly what the Muslim Brotherhood is doing here in the United States.
Now, you basically are talking about the Muslim Brotherhood movement within the United States. How big is the network now, John?
Here in the United States, I mean, they have thousands of organizations. Just to give your listeners and viewers an idea, the very first Islamic organization in North America in the United States was the Muslim Students Association, which was created in 1963, and it was created by the Muslim Brotherhood. So the Muslim Brotherhood in America created the first Islamic organization here, and from that, they created all of the prominent organizations created really up through the 1980s. And so today, as an example, there are over 600 Muslim Student Association MSA chapters at nearly every major college campus and university campus in the United States. There are over 2,100 Islamic centers in the United States, which is a big number, and we know that a majority of those are controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood. So with just those two organizations, you've got over 1,600 entities across America, and that's just two, and yet they have hundreds of other organizations out there. So their impact is significant here in the United States.
What's their primary function? What are they doing? Just are they kind of like evangelizing, growing, or what's their deal?
No, when they came to the United States in the 1950s and 60s, and the FBI in 2004, and we've chatted about this before, the FBI raided a home in 2004 in Annandale, Virginia, of a senior Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood leader in the United States, and they discovered the archives of the Muslim Brotherhood here. And much of that information was entered into evidence in the largest terrorism financing and Hamas trial ever successfully prosecuted here in the United States, something called the United States versus Holy Land Foundation, and that was adjudicated in 2008 in Dallas, Texas. Holy Land Foundation, at the time it was indicted, was the largest Islamic charity in America, and it turns out it was a Hamas entity. It was an organization set up by Hamas here in the United States. So these are significant data points about the movement and their influence here in the United States.
Well, let's just dig a little deeper. What, for those who really don't understand the Muslim Brotherhood, what is their ideology and their structure? What are they all about?
Well, so the Muslim Brotherhood's bylaws in English, which I have on my site, understandingthethreat.com, specifically states that it is an international Muslim body which seeks to establish Allah's law in the land, Sharia, Islamic law, across the entire globe. They seek to do it by all means necessary and by force of violence when they have to. But that is their entire purpose for existing. And they've set up now an entire network over the last 50 plus years in the United States, here in the U.S. and around the globe. They exist in over 100 countries now, where they have a formal structure. They have they have governing bodies, legislative bodies, and leaders in all the countries they exist in, including here in the United States. And everything they do is focused on their one objective, to establish Islamic law in the world. And whether we believe that they can do it or not, I would just put on the table that they have thousands of organizations here in the United States, extremely well organized and well funded. They have a strategic plan and an implementation manual that literally walks them down how to do it. They've been working on that and executing on that plan for over 20 years, and we see great strides here in the United States. The fact they have over 2,100 Islamic centers in America ought to be evidence of what they're doing. And this is not a religious movement. This is a revolutionary movement that seeks to overthrow our government. So First Amendment protections do not apply to someone whose stated objective is to overthrow your government. And we've seen them now overthrow governments across the Middle East, and they seek to do it elsewhere once they're done overthrowing the Islamic governments.
All right, you said something there. It's a key. You're saying it's not a religious movement, but yet they hide behind the religion in order to be accepted. And you and I know what all that means, but at what point do you think the American people will see that it is a revolutionary movement, it's not a religion?
That's hard to imagine or hard to take a guess. If I mean, there's two pieces to this. What they're saying is very clear. They're literally in the middle of a revolution across the Middle East where they've overthrown Egypt, Libya. They're working on Syria, as you know. They have Turkey. They're going to have Jordan, and they're going to keep working on Saudi Arabia, and eventually they're going to turn their sights on Saudi Arabia. With all the violence and all the leaders saying we are doing this for this reason, after the Boston bombing, after the British soldier got his head chopped off in the streets of Woolwich, not far from London, England, and the guy stands in the camera with blood dripping off his hands saying we're doing this because it's a command from Allah to have the Sharia across the entire globe, and we still haven't got it. It's hard to imagine that something's going to happen where we are going to get it. That said, there is a starting, at least in my professional opinion, as I go across the country, at the state and local level, there is a growing understanding that we have a problem. But again, the analogy I would use is, you know, Perry, if somebody came up to you at 9 o'clock at night after you got some money out of an ATM and grabbed you by the scruff of your collar and said, I have a gun in my pocket, I'm going to pull it out and kill you, does it behoove you to assume he doesn't mean it? Or does it behoove you to assume he does and take appropriate actions?
Wow.
And that's the question that we face, is we have an enemy who's serious, who's dedicated, who's well-funded, well-organized, and is actually overthrowing countries around the world and causing great social turmoil in places like France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Britain, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Sweden, across Europe, in South America, in Asia, and certainly where tens of thousands are being killed in Central Africa, Eastern Africa, Northern Africa. I mean, at what point do we actually take this seriously?
All right. What about the civil revolt within themselves, say Syria, and you know the mess that we almost got involved in with there. But it seems to be playing itself out in Lebanon and Egypt and Syria and other eastern countries where there is this civil war among themselves between the Brotherhood and the citizens. Do you see that going anywhere? Does that damage them, or does that maybe fuel them?
Well, there are a couple different parts. In Egypt, you have, prior to the revolution, you had national polls taken by U.S.-based research polling companies where 80 to 85% or better on some of the questions of the Egyptian people supported a fuller implementation of Islamic law, stoning for those who commit adultery, more Sharia. And yet our government, including our president, gets on international TV and says they want what we want. Well, we don't want Sharia. We have a constitution. We have a declaration that is the founding, that encapsulates our founding principles, and really one basic principle. We have a constitution that was the first shot at that, and that's our law of the land. They seek to overthrow that. Now, many people in this country, myself included, you know, as a Naval Academy midshipman, as a Marine, as an FBI agent, I swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. And my oath of office doesn't have an expiration date, and neither do those who are in local law enforcement, state law enforcement, federal law enforcement, military, elected officials, etc. We have a duty to defend this Constitution. And so as we look at this, these movements and these counter movements in Egypt, first, we have to recognize that they don't oppose Sharia. What they're opposing in Egypt is the Brotherhood's handling and implementation in the leadership capacity. That's the first thing. The Brotherhood would not have instituted or initiated the revolution when they did if they didn't think that it would be successful, and obviously it was. They overthrew the government. They put into power their own guy, a known Muslim Brotherhood guy, and they got the United States to stand behind them in that effort, which is absolutely a catastrophic failure on the part of U.S. foreign policy. In places like Syria, it's a different story. You don't have like-minded Muslims who want to get to the same goal but see a different way to it. You have Iranian-backed Syria, Shia, who are all about destroying the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda. And it's worth noting that our government, number one, doesn't know the difference between the two, clearly by what's come out of their mouths and the policies that we've been implementing. And number two, when we backed the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, clearly we were backing somebody who's hostile to us. When we backed the rebels, quote unquote, in Libya, we were backing the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda, and we were giving direct support to Al-Qaeda. What we're doing right now in Syria is giving direct support to the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda. It's not only a violation of, well, it's a violation of federal law, and we can pretty much leave it at that. Mm-hmm. So our government officials ought to be charged with a violation of that law. We're directly supporting our enemies. That's how broken our national strategy is and our foreign policies are.
All right. Hold on, John. Let me take a quick break. We'll be right back. John Guandolo's with us, and we're talking about his new book, Raising a Jihadi Generation. There's a picture of it there on the screen for those watching on theDove TV. Check it out at the bookstores or at Amazon. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Okay, we're back, and our very special guest today, John Guandolo. He is the counter-terrorism expert and former FBI agent, and co-authored the book about Sharia, the threat to America, and his new book, Raising a Jihadi Generation. There's a picture of it there on the screen. I would encourage you to get a copy of this. Probably check it out at Barnes & Noble or online at Amazon, and check down his, jot down his website, understandingthethreat.com. Understandingthethreat.com. That's a tremendous resource. John, you certainly have alluded to the fact that the spread of the Muslim Brotherhood in America is just overwhelming. I think you said now up to 1,600 plus organizations. How far in the higher-ups of the government, and in particular this administration, are they seen?
At the highest levels of our government, I can give you a couple quick examples. One is a past example, but it gives you a significant backdrop to what we're talking about. There was a gentleman named Abdurrahman al-Amoudi, and in the 1990s and early 2000s, he was the most prominent Islamic leader in America. He founded almost 24 of the largest Islamic organizations here, or was in a leadership position in those organizations. He served as an advisor to the President of the United States, President Clinton. He was brought in to the Bush campaign and was involved there. He was a goodwill ambassador for the State Department and actually participated in the Middle East peace process on behalf of the United States. He founded the Muslim chaplain program for the Department of Defense and had access to the White House and national security staff quite a bit. And in 2003, he was arrested in Heathrow Airport with $340,000 that he got from Muammar Gaddafi of Libya and for the global jihad. He was extradited to Alexandria, Virginia, to the Eastern District and pled guilty. And as it turned out, he was not only a Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood operative, he was a financier for Al-Qaeda. And so we have an Al-Qaeda guy founded the Muslim chaplain program for the Department of Defense, was the advisor to the President of the United States. That's the level of penetration. Now fast forward to today, the Islamic Society of North America, as proven in a court of law from evidence, is a funding mechanism for Hamas, is the largest Muslim Brotherhood entity here in North America, the Islamic Society of North America, or ISNA, ISNA, and their president, Mohammed Majid, attends White House functions, has been publicly lauded by the Deputy National Security Advisor of the President of the United States for being a great patriot, moderates panels at the CIA headquarters, has been given awards by the FBI, sits on the Department of Homeland Security's Advisory Committee. This is not letting the wolf in the hen house. This is giving the wolf access to whatever he wants. And this is where we are today. Those are just a couple examples of how bad it is, and there are many more, several of which I detail in the book.
It appears that this administration is clearly Muslim Brotherhood friendly, if not to the point of promoting it. Can you comment on that?
Well, I think, again, as I do my work, as you know, I brief members of Congress, four-star generals and admirals, governors, attorney generals, former directors of intelligence agencies. And what comes up most are questions about the current administration. Well, first of all, this has been a problem since the 90s, as I just mentioned with the example of Al-Amoudi being an advisor to President Clinton. That's the first piece. With regards to this administration, we have seen it get significantly worse. What we can look at are policies and what this administration is doing in terms of fighting this enemy. So on those two pieces, first of all, as far as going after the Muslim Brotherhood, this administration has shut down all training in the FBI, DHS, and in the military that has this discussion that you and I are having about the Muslim Brotherhood's movement, about Sharia, what it is. Now, I want your listeners and your viewers to understand the implications of this. Our enemy specifically says that they are jihadis, fighting jihad in the cause of Allah in order to impose Islamic law in the entire world. That's what bin Laden has said. That's what Al-Qaeda says. That is what the Muslim Brotherhood says. That's what many of these nation states, Islamic nations, say. And when we see martyrs getting ready to blow themselves up in these videos, that's what they say. And yet our military and our federal government has decided that even though they say that they're fighting to impose Sharia, and that is what they are doing, we don't need to know what Sharia actually is. We don't need to know who the Muslim Brotherhood is and how they operate with Al-Qaeda and other jihadi organizations. That's the first big part. So the understanding of the enemy, this administration has shut down. I used to teach at the Joint Forces Staff College, the Army War College. No more. Those programs have been shut down by the order of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs in the spring of 2012.
Wow.
So that's the first part. Then look at their policies. This administration is dwindling our naval, Army, and Marine Corps forces, dwindling our nuclear forces, our border security, dwindling our protection of our infrastructure. Our policies are pro-Hezbollah, pro-Iran, pro-Hamas, clearly not aggressively pursuing those entities to crush them like we should be doing, pro-Muslim Brotherhood, As I mentioned earlier, we back the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. We back the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda in Libya. We're backing the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda against the Syrian government.
All right, and most recently this year alone, the president has fired 9 generals. Is there any connection between those firings and the topic we have today?
Well, of course. I mean, if you get men who are strong war fighters, this administration is not about that. And they haven't been about that. And I think that right there, I think General McChrystal is a great example. And there are certainly others. General Mattis, I guess technically you could say it was a forced resignation, not a firing. But those are warriors. And those are the kind of men that are being pushed out, the kind of men that are in leadership positions, or what the administration would like to see are weak men of little, character. Men like General Dempsey, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who's going to kowtow to an administration who's giving unconstitutional orders. All
right, I'm going to run out of time here. Any connection between the Muslim Brotherhood and the Boston Marathon bombing?
Absolutely. One of the things I would encourage, and this is one of the things I've been talking about recently, if you look in the last 10 years at jihadi attacks and attacks that were thwarted by the U.S. government, every one of them has got a tie to the Brotherhood. Boston Marathon bombing, Tsarnaev brothers attended the Islamic Society of Boston. It's a subsidiary of the Islamic Society of North America, Muslim Brotherhood. And oh, by the way, it was founded by Abdurrahman al-Amoudi, an al-Qaeda guy. And in testimony about 7 weeks ago in front of Congress, the FBI director, the outgoing FBI director, said he was not aware that Islamic Society of Boston was founded by an al-Qaeda guy. But we can go to several others. Fort Hood, Major Hassan attended the Dar al-Hijra Islamic Center in Falls Church, Virginia, Muslim Brotherhood. And the imam while he was there was Anwar al-Awlaki, the al-Qaeda leader in Yemen who we killed with a missile, who, oh, by the way, mentored 9/11 hijackers when he was at Muslim Brotherhood Islamic centers in California, and then he came to Virginia. And oh, by the way, Anwar al-Awlaki was the president of the Muslim Students Association, Muslim Brotherhood, at the Colorado State University. And we can go on and on. The Virginia Five, the 5 gentlemen from Northern Virginia arrested in Pakistan a few years ago, all were members of the Islamic Circle in North America, part of the Muslim Brotherhood movement. And the leader of that group was the president of the Muslim Student Association for the D.C. area. I mean, you can do this with every one of these events.
Wow. John, I'm almost out of time. I got a couple minutes left. Let me ask you this. It appears to me that there are members of Congress who get what you're saying and probably have access to this intelligence that you're sharing with us. But are they being intimidated to shut up? Because there seems to be enough evidence now. Quite frankly, the president should be impeached for abuse of powers and really destroying the Constitution of the United States.
Yes, there are members of Congress that understand this, but look at what happens when they speak up. In the spring, summer of 2012, 5 members of Congress, including Congresswoman Bachmann, Congressman Gohmert, Trent Franks, and others, put forth letters to the inspector generals of the key entities inside the government, the Department of Defense, the intelligence, etc. And they were asking, why are you not, or you should investigate the Muslim Brotherhood's penetration of our government. It was not the Democrat Party, it was not the media that attacked them. It was men like Marco Rubio, John Boehner, Eric Cantor, and Senator John McCain, who called these people bigots, haters, Islamophobes. That's where we are today. Ignorant, and I would say people who are either willingly ignorant or willingly trying to protect enemies of the state. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and just say they're grossly arrogant and ignorant. But that's where we are. So yeah, good people are standing up. Congresswoman Sue Myrick did it from North Carolina when she was in office. And what happened? It was her own party that lambasted her.
Yeah. All right, the name of the book is entitled Raising a Jihadi Generation, and a picture of it there on the screen by John Guandolo. And Guandolo, excuse me, and encourage you to get a copy of it, Amazon or Barnes & Noble. John, thank you. I want to have you back. I think we're just scratching the surface. And
yes.
Bless you. We pray God's protection over you. Let's talk again soon.
Thank you very much. Appreciate being on. God bless.
Oh, God bless. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Well, we're back, and I am really excited to have back with us today Patrick Morley. You probably have read one of his books, if not perhaps the book that he's best known for, The Man in the Mirror. He's authored over 20 books, and he's considered a men's leader. And he's authored a new book, How God Makes Men, and I'm really excited to talk to him about this today. And hey, Patrick, a few moments ago when you were kind of setting the camera and it kind of zoomed out, I noticed above your head there's a rifle on the wall. All right, man, you're a man.
There's a long story behind that rifle. It's not actually mine. Long story. But
okay.
Anyway.
Nice to have you. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So good to be with you.
Yeah, great. Well, listen, you hit the nail on the head again with this book. And, you know, it's interesting because I had this discussion the other day with a Christian counselor, how men are struggling, Christian men are struggling what would be called the authentic Christian life. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, first of all, you know, so when I travel and a stranger learns that I work with men as a vocation, they'll often say something like, you know, that must really be hard. And I always just say, whoops, you got the wrong guy here. We constantly see men coming to Christ, growing in the faith, serve Him. But, you know, with all of that said, we need to do a reality check, too. And so lots of guys are just really confused about what it means to be a man. We live in a culture now that the pop culture ridicules men in general, Christian men in particular, and so a lot of guys are really finding it hard to sustain their faith out in the world. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. You know, you kind of wonder, is the culture feminizing men? I mean, it's been said that's the case. Men are always put down in the commercials, always put down in the sitcoms, so maybe what a man is supposed to be is just not getting through.
Well, I don't know about that. I do know that the men we work with, they desperately want to get this right. In fact, I've never talked to a man who got up in the morning and said to himself, well, I wonder what I can do today to mess up my life, you know? So, I mean, no man wakes up and says to himself, well, I wonder what I can do today to irritate my wife. Well, actually, you probably do that. But anyway, they don't try to irritate their wives, neglect their kids, let their bosses down, have a moral failure. But a lot of men are doing those things, and they're looking for help. And that's why I wanted to write this book, How God Makes Men, to basically get back to some of these Bible characters. And are these just a bunch of guys with long beards and longer robes riding around on camels that have nothing relevant to say to men today? Or do they have principles that we can actually apply to the problems that we face as men? And, of course, the answer is yes, but a lot of guys don't know exactly how to data mine for those things, and so that's why I wanted to write this book.
You deal with 10 principles, and of course you use a lot of the biblical characters to express that. Why don't you run through those principles?
Okay, so first of all, the characters, the first guy is Abraham,
right.
and no man who ever hears this broadcast or even hears that this broadcast ever took place will ever have his faith tested more than Abraham. And so the principle that is illustrated in that chapter is that God makes men by helping us to understand and have faith even in the most seemingly impossible circumstances. You know the story of Abraham's faith being tested 25 years before he had his son, and then he was tested to give his son up, and so just to show men how Bible time works, how God's time is not like our time at all, and so there's that going on. So that's one. I don't know if you want me just to kind of go through them all 10.
Go ahead. Yeah, sure. Take your time.
I'll toss it back and forth as much as you want, of course.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the next guy is Joseph, and so no man has ever felt more mistreated than Joseph. So he was caged and sold like an animal by his brothers.
Right.
He was falsely accused of rape. He was imprisoned wrongly, and he didn't know what was going on. It was 22 years later when there was a famine, and his brothers came down, and by then he'd been the prime minister of Egypt, and he realized, and he told his brothers, you meant it for evil to harm me, but God meant it for good, for the saving of many lives. And so it's the principle of a greater good. So God makes men by basically orchestrating what seem like impossible circumstances for a greater good. And so to talk through, there are lots of guys who will do this broadcast who feel deeply mistreated and unfairly judged. And so how do you handle that? How do you get through that? Well, God put the story of Joseph in the Bible, so we would be able to figure that out.
Now, there is a thread here, Patrick, and that is that both in Abraham's case and in Joseph's case, there is this relationship they had with God.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
exactly.
And I think a lot of men are trying to have that relationship with God, but how can they affirm that they have that relationship with God? So when they are faced with whether they have to make a decision about a son, or they're being mistreated and misused and sold into slavery, that they know God is there.
Well, Perry, you have to have the right information. So what we discover in the work that we do with men is so many men, it's kind of like they've enlisted and been issued a rifle that they don't know how to clean or shoot. So they're not much good on the day of battle. And so you have to have the right information. And I just stopped my phone. I got it. A little too much animation.
That's all right. We're live. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I get it. So, okay, all my secrets are out. I'm a klutz. But anyway, guys really want to know how to get their lives right. And these 10 men that I picked to mentor them out of the Bible, they're just the perfect guys because, hey, guys, listen to me. If God didn't use flawed men, he wouldn't use any men at all. Mm-hmm. So every one of these guys has funny fellows. Abraham, take Abraham. Abraham, he encouraged his wife to sleep with another man so he could get ahead.
Yeah.
He had a child out of wedlock with his housekeeper, and then he abandoned them financially. And then wants to keep himself from getting mugged, he pretended that his wife was his sister. So this is not exactly the sterling kind of guy that is often presented. Too good to make a mistake. Very real guy, very flawed man. A man really just like us.
Go figure.
Well, hopefully not like me.
Well, what we don't want.
Me.
Yeah, there you go. What we don't want to misinterpret here, because so often we hear how flawed these guys really were, and yet God used them, that's not an excuse to keep on making mistakes.
God changed their lives. He transformed their lives. Hey, take Moses, for example. So Moses killed a guy because he thought he was going to be the deliverer of his people, and then God drove him into the wilderness for 40 years. After 40 years, he was a much humbler guy, of course. But the point of that was there was too much Moses in Moses. But the principle in that chapter, by the way, is that God makes men by putting us through a humbling process that fundamentally changes the way that we think. And so, as I say, you have to have the right information. And so God is building into our lives the character that we need so that the conduct that we want to have can flow from that. He's also taking some things out of our lives as well. Make sense?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Yeah.
A lot of men are recluse. They don't like the kumbaya like women. They don't go to the bathrooms in coveys. They like to be alone. And yet, to come together with other men and to be open and vulnerable just isn't a comfortable thing to do. What can you say to that?
All right, so this is a huge problem because men communicate information. Women communicate to express feelings and emotions, and so I just give me the facts. Mm-hmm. So men do tend toward isolation, as you said, Terry. Here's the problem: anybody that's ever watched the National Geographic Channel knows this is true, and that is that every predator, no predator goes after the herd. The predator always goes after what? The stray.
Right.
Every predator knows the strategic value of isolation. And men, we have a predator on our trail, the devil, and his stated purpose, according to Jesus, is to steal and to kill and to destroy us. And so we do need to be. In fact, I always tell men, if you can only do one thing, study the Word of God for yourself on a regular basis and be in a small group with some other men who are engaged. I guess that's two things, but but being so I'm clumsy and my math is not very good.
All right, let me take a quick break here. When we come back, Patrick, I want you to dig a little deeper, and that is this. A lot of men are under a lot of pressure today, even to the point of maybe breaking. And sometimes that breaking ends up being abuse in the home, which you're well aware of. What can you tell a guy who's just on the edge? He's had enough, can't handle anymore, more is being demanded of him. What should he do? And I'll have you tackle that when we get back. Patrick Morley's with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back, and just delighted to have back with us today Patrick Morley. Perhaps you have read one of his books, The Man in the Mirror, one of them, but his latest book is How God Makes Men, 10 Epic Stories, 10 Proven Principles, 1 Huge Promise for Your Life. There's a picture of it on the screen put out by Multnomah Books. Let me encourage you to check it out at Evangel or Christian Discounts Books, or maybe online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Get a copy of it. I'm sure it will be a tremendous resource for you. All right, Patrick, and I understand I got to let you go a little early because you got another interview, but you have now made it on the big time. You're on the Dove.
Life is good.
All right, a man under a lot of pressure, and boy, you're seeing a lot to this. And I know you do a lot of speaking to men. I do as well, and I tell you, some guys are living right on the brink. The culture has really got them squeezed. What do you say to these guys?
Okay, so we do live in a culture that is built around increasingly dysfunctional ideas, cultural ideas. We have a pop culture now that has pretty much abandoned Judeo-Christian values. You know, there used to be this moral consensus of Judeo-Christian values. Now, Christians are a minority and always have been, but we're the biggest minority that we've ever been. Mm-hmm. There are about 100 million of us now in the United States, 1 in 3 roughly. But as a minority, we no longer set the agenda for the values of the culture. And so guys that really are not firmly planted in biblical manhood, more than ever are subject to become let's just call them cultural Christians. Mm-hmm. So the way it happened for me is that I wanted to make a lot of money, and so I caught a disease. Let's call it success sickness, the disease of always wanting more, but then never being happy when you get it. Mm-hmm. And so I like Solomon, and I talk about Solomon in this book. I was pursuing happiness apart from God every possible earthly avenue to find happiness apart from God. But God is gracious, and He has introduced futility into the creation. Futility is the chief tool by which God sovereignly draws us to Himself of our own free will. In other words, He just makes our life so miserable that we can't live without Him.
Right.
And so men that are going through this crush right now, consider it all grace. Consider it a blessing. God loves you so much that He's trying to get your attention, to get you focused on the real truth. And so that's what I wanted to write about in this book, is basically just to help these guys embrace and engage in more of a biblical Christianity. Because, look, this other thing that you are doing, guys, it's gutting your manhood. It's gutting your manhood.
Are you seeing positive signs in the younger generation where they seem to be getting the idea that there's a purpose in life, God-designed purpose in life, sooner than us old guys?
No, I'm actually finding the opposite. Notwithstanding that there are a lot of younger people now who really are embracing an orthodox, traditional Christian faith,
right.
I would say that, I had a 28-year-old young man come to say recently and said, "Would you mentor me?" And I said, so he's 28 years old. He is a believer. On our fourth visit, he walks in, he sits down, and he says, "I have a mediocre business, I have a mediocre marriage, and I have a mediocre relationship with God."
Wow.
And so he had waited to his fourth visit. Why? Because he wanted to know if he could trust me with that information. And I find that young men have all this bottled up inside of them, and they don't have mentors. I want to tell you a little story. It's so poignant. And it's about this older men mentoring younger men idea. In the Kruger National Park in South Africa, the elephants overpopulated the park. So the government, in its wisdom, decided to kill the adult elephants and relocate their offspring to other parks around South Africa. So as the young bull elephants became teenagers, their testosterone levels spiked, and they became very aggressive. In one park, they savagely trampled and killed 37 rhinoceros. So in one park, a ranger had an idea, and they brought in some adult male bulls, and they mentored the younger teenage bulls, and not one single rhinoceros was ever killed in that park again.
Wow.
And I think this is one of the desperate needs. In fact, I talk about it in the book. I said, look, if you don't do anything else, help a younger guy figure out what biblical manhood is all about.
I know you got to go. Let me ask you one more question. The subtitle, One Huge Promise for Your Life. What is it?
Okay, so here it is. Ready, guys? So if you will embrace and engage the ideas that these 10 mentors are presenting, that I help these principles that are in this book, that you can escape the clutches of this cultural Christianity that I said is gutting manhood today, and get to or back to more of a biblical Christianity. You can become the man that you want to be. It's possible. You can release the power of God in every direction, in every detail of your lives. I'd love to sit down with you and have a conversation in this book, How God Makes Men, and show you some of these principles.
Thank you, my friend. I know you're on a tight schedule. I value every minute of it. We'll get you back. Keep up the good work.
You.
And I do want to get the story of the rifle over your head.
Hey, just one more quick word.
Yeah.
You know, we're hiring 330 area directors, one for every 1,000 churches.
Wow.
To help church more effectively disciple men. We've hired 80 men so far. We're hiring. Man in the Mirror is hiring. And so there may be some men that are listening to this, or you know somebody, some men who might like to investigate a career in men's discipleship, helping churches, and they could go to areadirectors.org and get all the information. That's areadirectors.org. I'd appreciate that.
Oh, you bet. That's a great tip. Thanks, my friend. All right. Patrick, take it easy. We'll get you back real soon.
Thank you, Perry.
All right, see you later. All right, Patrick Morley with us today. And again, the book is entitled How God Makes Men, 10 Epic Stories, 10 Proven Principles, 1 Huge Promise for Your Life. Patrick is... he's kind of like a men's leader, and there you can just tell by his heart he's into mentoring men and working with men leaders and men's groups all over the country. Check out the book, see if Evangel has it there in the mall, or maybe Christian Discount Books in Jacksonville, or you can check it out at Amazon, or maybe even at Barnes & Noble. How God Makes Men, 10 Epic Stories, 10 Proven Principles, 1 Huge Promise for Your Life. And he does use some of the Bible characters that are really, really powerful. Well, coming up, again, I just want to remind you, tomorrow is a very special day on the Dove TV, as we'll be airing the Billy Graham special tomorrow night at 8:30. And I really hope that you will make an effort to see it and to watch it. If you are watching on Roku, you can just watch right here. It'll be there on Roku. If you are a subscriber to Charter, it's Charter Channel 18 in Jackson and Josephine County. And if you're in the Klamath Falls area, it's Charter Channel 89. And of course, you can watch it online at theDove.us. They're saying it's perhaps Billy Graham's last media appearance. He is 95 years old, but he has an incredible heart of evangelism, always has in his life. But I think he speaks really from the depths of his heart and his soul to us, and especially to America in this times. And you know what? He says something in there that, because I've been able to see bits and pieces of the show, that is, I think it's one of those moments where you have to stop and take a long look and a long consideration. But he says you have to look at the surrounding times and all of the events in the world. They seem to be coming together very rapidly, that fulfills Bible prophecy, in particular the second coming of Christ. Now, we don't know when that's going to happen, and we don't know if it'll happen in our lifetime, but we can't ignore all the things that are going on in the world. And that is not an excuse to run or to hide or to cow down, but it becomes an incredible opportunity to evangelize. And that's what it's all about here at the Dove. I'm telling you, I wish you could read some of our letters and some of our emails of the things that we're getting, comments that we're getting from the programming, both on the Dove television and on the Dove radio. It is phenomenal. And it seems like the fields are white unto harvest for people who are asking key questions about life. Who can I trust? What is truth? And we try our best to fulfill that with all the programming we do here at the Dove. Well, Billy Graham comments on that during his special, and I hope that you can get a chance to watch that. It'll be tomorrow night, 8:30 on the Dove TV, so don't forget it. In the meantime, you may want to pick up a copy of Patrick's book. It's called How God Makes Men, and it might make a great study guide for a men's group. You may want to get this and several of them, hand them out to your men's group, and use it as a resource there. All right, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at the Dove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us.